How's it going, guys? My name is Anthony Garcia, and today I have prepared for you guys a presentation on expectations and navigating the uncertainties of life. I gotta grab the laptop. So, before I give you guys, or even get into this, I want you guys to have a good idea of who's giving you this presentation. So I have who am I on paper. My name is Anthony Garcia. I am 27 years old. I was born in 1998. I said 19. I have 3 older brothers. I have divorced parents. My job right now is construction development. I'm from Northwest Indiana. I went to Lake Central High School, class of 2017. My hobbies include general fitness, coaching football, playing basketball, boxing, playing piano, reading, hunting, golf, etc. Anything that challenges or moves the body or challenges the mind, I like to do. Do you guys feel like you got a good idea of who I am? We're nodding yes? Okay. Who I am really? I'm someone who is just as uncertain as you guys. I have no idea what this year is going to bring to me. I have no idea what next month has for me, and I have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring. And I embrace that. I'm someone who comes from a strong background in faith, and now I have some doubts. My mom raised me a very strong Christian, and up until a few years ago, I didn't start actually asking deeper questions. And I think that is okay because ultimately it deepens your faith. I'm someone who finds a sort of peace from a simple cup of coffee. It's just something about having a cup of coffee first thing in the morning with my buddy Will, and life just makes sense. I'm someone who feels a little odd about not wanting anything more in life. Not that I don't have goals or that I'm complacent, but the material just doesn't entice me. I'm talking about things like a nicer car or jewelry, because I understand that material things only bring temporary positive spikes in emotion. I'm someone who's very goofy, and I'm not letting it out, but when I was practicing this presentation with friends, I couldn't do it because I had to be serious. And that was very hard for me. I'm someone who has a fighter mentality and holds myself accountable. To me, a fighter mentality is knowing for a fact that whatever situation comes my way, I'm going to be able to fight my way out and come out a stronger person. And lastly, I'm someone who just likes to practice handstands, walk around barefoot, because it just makes me feel free. Do you guys feel like you have a better idea of who I am now? Okay, perfect. So the format of this presentation. My purpose, my main goal of giving you guys this speech. Followed that is expectations put on you guys and expectations you put on yourself in high school. Then I have my mentality going through high school, my story on navigating young adulthood. Then we're going to do a story breakdown with lessons learned, and then closing it with some key takeaways. So my main purpose, if you guys can get anything out of this message, it is to walk out of that door with your minds just a little bit more at ease. If you happen to get anything else, I have 2 key takeaways at the end that I think are worth taking a picture of or writing down, or just simply trying to remember. So to get into it, expectations. I feel like we've all seen this graphic before, but it's how we expect life to go. Point A to point B, super simple, and how life actually goes with all the beautiful twists and turns. And then right next to it, I have a typical path. These are typical milestones that people have after they graduate high school, or just goals in general. Everyone usually has a list of things they want to do. So I have a little fill-in-the-blank game, and I need you guys to interact with me here. All right? So we're starting at step 1, right now in your guys' situation. Help me out and fill out this blank. Get good grades so you can go to, thank you. Go to college so you can get a good, yep. Get a good job so you can buy a, boom. Now this one's a little bit tricky. All the while you happen to fall in what? Nice. I had a buddy of mine say debt. And yeah. All right, so here we go. When you're in love, naturally after a while, you want to get married. And lastly, when you get married, you might just think about having, boom, perfect. And while all of this is great, this is fantastic, I think it's really important to focus on everything in between. Because it's so easy for us to get this tunnel vision, this what's next mentality of step one to step two, and we just hyper-focus on these things, when I think life is actually lived with the emotions in between every single one of these steps. The emotions that you get when you find out you failed that exam to get into college. Or the emotions you get when you find out you passed. And I think both of those are absolutely amazing. And I'm hoping by the end of this, you guys will understand why. So high school Anthony. I didn't care about my grades. I will stand here in front of all of you guys and tell you I was going into my senior year with a 2.3 GPA. It's not the best. The only things I really cared about were hanging out with my buddies, hanging out with my girlfriend, and just having a good time. I knew one thing, and it's that I wanted to play sports in college. I wanted to run track or play football in college. The reason I wanted to do that is because I had no other option. My mom told me she wasn't going to pay for me to go to school, and I didn't really have any other idea or clue what I wanted to do in adulthood. So my main goal was to get a college scholarship. I got one college scholarship, and it was for track, it was for long jump, and it was just not enough money. But what this did is it gave me a really hard time on picturing what adulthood was going to be like, because I spent all 4 years of high school focused on one thing, working as hard as I can to get a college scholarship. And I never actually thought about what I would do if I got that college scholarship and what I would actually want to go to school for, because I couldn't skip that step. And so I found myself, towards the end of senior year, asking my friends, hey man, like, what are you going to do after high school? Oh, I'm going to Purdue, I'm going to be an engineer. Or hey, what are you going to do? I'm going to school and be a nurse. Or I'm going into finance, I'm going into business. Or I'm taking over my parents' business. Or I would go to a high school graduation party, and the parents would always come up to ask me, without a doubt, they'd always go, where are you going to school? They wouldn't say, what are you doing after high school? What's your plan? They would always ask me, where are you going to school? And that would just make me feel like I'm doing something wrong, like I'm not following the right path. And everyone had a plan, or at least that's just how it felt. So we get to the fun part a little bit. This is my life building phase. This is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 6 years and 5 bullet points. We're gonna miss out on some details. Right after high school, I got straight to work. My mom told me, well, actually my stepdad told me I needed to be out of the house at a certain time. He said, you gotta go. And so I had a goal of buying a home right after high school. And with that, I got a job doing like water sampling in schools in the area for lead. That was a 6-month job, and then I entered the trades. I entered whatever trade would take me, which was the carpenters union. And that was at 20 years old. I was very excited. This was my first career job. I was going to be making decent money, and I now had somewhat of an idea of what I was going to be doing for a living. The only issue was I hated it. I hated it because the first job was at a steel mill. It was ArcelorMittal, and the main thing I hated was the hours. I had to work 7 days a week, 12-hour days, very often. And while the money was great, I was not happy. And I felt like there was more to life. I felt like there was more to life than just working this job and saving my money while I'm at home, and I'm not getting fulfillment. So I had a job opportunity in Chicago about 2 years after that. I stayed at the mill for 2 years and just saved up money. And I had a job opportunity in Chicago, which was actually more money, less hours, and cleaner work. So after taking this job, and I'm still dating the same girl from high school, by the way. It's been about, 5 or 6 years now. She's in college, and I feel pretty settled on where I'm at this point in my life. I'm 22 years old. I have a stable career job, a good paying job, and I'm dating the same girl from high school. So tell me, what do you guys think would be the next logical step? Come on. I see you. It's get engaged. So, 22 years old, I decided to get engaged. That was a very stressful time because I knew she was going to say yes. It wasn't stressful, it was just excitement. You're excited when you get to propose. You know she's going to say yes, but all the emotions that come with it. It's not the actual checkbox of engaged, but the emotions that come with it. That was amazing. And I always tell people when I have friends and say they're getting engaged, I say enjoy the moment before you do it, before you drop onto a knee, because that feeling in your chest, that is life in itself. And so now I'm engaged, I have a good job, and I choose to buy a home. Not only did I buy a home, I decided to have a home built. The only issue is I decided to have this home built in 2020, which we all know was COVID. And this was kind of risky. But I play a little bit of a risky game, and I did the numbers, and I crunched it. I said, this is going to work out. And about 3 months into the home buying process, and the house is getting built, I'm right here, and I'm on my way home from work, and I get a call from my boss. Hey, dude, we're laying you off. I immediately start crying, and I start stressing out. What am I going to do? I'm going to lose my house. I have no other option. I don't know how to do anything else. So I'm stuck with the decision. I can choose to lose the house, or I can go back to the steel mills and take a step back in my career, and my happiness would just tank. And my fiance at the time kind of urged me to go back to the steel mills, and so I decided to do it. And I gave myself kind of a ultimatum on the second I get another job opportunity, I'm taking it. And not but just 2 months later, in a crazy way that life works, I was driving past the house, and there was a truck in the driveway, and it said, "Trim carpenters wanted." So I said, I'm a carpenter. I want to learn trim. I want to continue to be a better carpenter, so I gave them a call. And they told me, or they hired me, and the only issue was that I was going to be getting less money. I budgeted for this when I was doing the house. I'd make less money, so I had to weigh something. I just had to weigh money over happiness, and ultimately I chose my happiness, and I took the job. And that leads me into my next stage, coasting. This is where life is pretty chill. It starts at 23 years old. I get career growth. I go from knowing nothing about trim carpentry to becoming a customer service guy, and then to becoming a foreman. After that, I got married at 24 years old. And I started traveling. Her and I went on a couple places, a couple trips, and just starting to live life and having more time to do more leisure things, like get into coaching football. But around that time, I had an injury at the gym, because like any normal 25-year-old guy does, they go to the gym at 3:30 in the morning with their buddy, and they throw 315 on the squat rack, and they just get after it with no warm-up. And I was doing that, and I went down, I came up, and my back went out. I herniated 2 discs in my back, and I'm walking like this out of the gym at 25 years old. And I started to kind of stress. I started to stress because I realized if my body doesn't work, I can't make money. And if I can't make money, I can't take care of my wife. If I can't take care of my wife, how am I supposed to take care of kids? Or how am I supposed to have a home? And all these things started to spiral into my head. And then I remembered a conversation with the man I had about a year before this about this job that he loved, and he was telling me about it. And it was just so random. And I decided to look him up that day. And they were hiring. The only issue was they were hiring for a building energy modeler. Okay, I've never gone to school for CAD. CAD is computer-aided design. I don't have any experience doing that. I already don't feel qualified. But then I kind of start to think to myself, as I'm putting my resume together, well, I have experience in the industrial landscape. I have experience in the commercial industry. I have experience in the residential industry. And now I also have experience in customer service and the ability to lead a team. All of these things I thought didn't matter as I was going through my young adulthood. They actually rounded out to make me a pretty well-rounded prospect. So I went through an interview process with this job, and I did well in the first one, and then I absolutely killed the second one, and I got an offer. And this was going to further my career. This was going to take me to the next level, and I'm somebody who didn't go to school and could never imagine being in this position. But I had to take a calculated leap of faith again, because I had to weigh out career growth, I think a better quality of life, and then money, because I was going to be taking a little bit of a pay cut, but this job would have a higher ceiling. And so, like I did the first time, I decided to follow my happiness. I'm now at a point at 26 years old. By the way, I'm 27. Where I've achieved my goals. My body was healthy. I was happily married. I had a beautiful home, and I absolutely love my job. What could go wrong, right? What could go wrong? We see in 2025, things started to shift, and they were just out of my control last year. It started actually in January. Next week would be a 1 year out from this, where I was hooping with some of my friends, and I took a bad step. I tore my ACL. I tried to get up and walk it off, play it cool. It kept giving out on me. A few months later, a friend from work urged me to go to the doctor and said, hey, before you get back to playing, I'd probably suggest getting an MRI. And good thing I did, because that doctor told me I had no ACL. It was gone. That was the first of 2 surgeries last year. And so my immediate mentality going into the surgery was, I'm going to bring my fighter mentality into this. I'm just gonna kill it. And I did. About 3.5 months into that surgery, I was running a 5:45 mile. And I was running sand hills, and everyone was telling me, Anthony, you're crazy for going so hard. I said, dude, I got one speed. But that kind of worked against me because that's why I had to get a second surgery. But before we even get to that, I just want to go over the battles of what that brought with me as somebody as active as I was. I told my boss right after surgery, I told her before the surgery, I'm going to be there, I'll be back in office 2 days. It took me 3 weeks. And what came with this was I woke up and I realized I'm in this brace. And I'm locked out in this brace. I can't bend my leg. I'm not allowed to bend my leg apparently for, I think, 3 weeks. I have to keep it on for 24 hours, locked out, sleeping this way. I have 7 incisions in my leg. And they took a piece of my quad and ran it through my knee, and I had no quad activation. I had no neuromuscular connection from my brain to my quad. And what that means is I can't tell my quad to fire. And that means I can't walk, I can't lift my leg. And I started to get freaked out because I realized this isn't just a small surgery. This is an actual year-long recovery. And I remember just sitting there and trying to show my wife at the time how to pick my leg up, and I couldn't. And I started crying because I've never been able to not just move my body. And that took so much happiness away from me. But then I realized this is actually the easiest battle of my 2025. This is nothing. Because in week 6, I remember writing in my journal, this is the hardest time of my adulthood. And I went to PT that day, and there was a lady there. And she told me, Anthony, this is the hardest time of my adulthood. Thank goodness for my husband. And I just kind of looked at her sadly, because earlier that week, I had found out that I was going to be getting a divorce. And that was hard. That was very hard for me, because now everything changed. The way I viewed the past changed. The way I view my present moment and live my life changed right now, and my planned future changed. Her and I just drifted apart, and there was nothing I can do to salvage the marriage. And what I now realized was I was on the front lines of a physical, emotional, and spiritual battle. The physical battle really went off to the side, but it was still there. I was only 6 weeks in. I was still learning how to walk, and now I have to do everything alone. But the emotional actually started to affect my physical to the point where I didn't tell anyone about this for a while until I couldn't keep it in anymore. And I burst out crying one day at work at 6 o'clock in the morning in front of 2 of my friends. But my hands would start to shake like this, and I couldn't stop it. Weeks of no sleep and all this anxiety. And I lost weight. I started the surgery at 195, and I got all the way down to 30 pounds less, which was 165 pounds. I haven't been that light since I think 8th grade. This was hard. And then I get a spiritual battle. I was already going through and asking questions before this, but now I felt like I didn't have the emotional capacity to even pursue questions like this and search for answers, so I pushed it to the side. And so that brings me to here, right now, today, because this was all last year. I met Julie and Jody in a coffee shop, and I was just reading, and they came out to me because of my tattoos. And we got into a great conversation, and by the end of it, they asked me if I would speak to you guys. And initially, I was hesitant. I didn't think I was in the right place to speak to a group of kids about the next phase in their life because I didn't feel like I was where I needed to be. But ultimately, in an effort to seek discomfort, I decided to go for it because I know that on the other side of discomfort is growth. And I don't know what this next phase of my life is going to bring, but I know what I'm going to bring in it with me. And one of those things is I'm going to be process-driven and not goal-oriented. I was on a call with my buddy Nick a couple days ago, and he actually told me this, and I decided to slide this in there because I think it's very important because for you guys, it's very easy to have these goals in mind, right? We all have goals, and we hyper-fixate on these goals, but he was telling me, take it one step at a time. Be process-driven. Be focused on the process. Take it one step at a time instead of trying to skip and falling down, and just stay within the moment because this helps alleviate anxiety, and it helps alleviate the control we feel like we need to have. I've also learned that you don't have control over the outcome in certain situations. I didn't have control over tearing my ACL or complete control over this divorce, but I did have control on how I chose to respond. And lastly, my mentality and my choices made in the darkest year of my life led me here talking to a group of young adults that are prepared and getting ready to go into the next phase of their life. And to be quite frank with you guys, I am very proud of that. I have 2 more slides. It's this one and one more, and then we're out. The breakdown. Teenage Anthony never had a plan. And even if I did, I'm not sure it would have went the way I thought it would. It is okay not to have a plan. Early 20s Anthony made the most out of his situations and had the motivation to learn, even though it felt like it wouldn't matter. There is a difference between not having a plan and being unmotivated. Mid-20s Anthony took calculated leaps of faith. There will be moments in adulthood that you know for a fact can change the trajectory of your life. And the choice does rest in your hands. You control this, and you have to weigh out things that matter to you, things that you value. And I always weighed money over happiness, and I took happiness every single time. Late 20s Anthony found out that herniating the disc was a blessing. Sometimes what you think is best for you and what is actually best for you are 2 different things. Because I was freaked out when I herniated my disc, and I thought my career was done. But actually, that opened doors to a whole new career and a bunch of new relationships of people that helped me through my divorce and helped me through my surgery and were supportive because I needed them at the time, because they were my therapists all last year. And lastly, present-day Anthony is learning that your perspective can shape your reality. How you choose to perceive your situations does shape how you view the world. How I chose to look at my 2025 and any adversity that you would have in your life, how you choose to go about that does shape your reality. And for my last slide, these are my takeaways. If you guys can get anything else out of this, these are them. And before I even list these out to you or read them out to you guys, I just want to emphasize that I think these are very common. I think people go wrong when they don't apply them. They only apply them to the large-scale moments in their life. And what I think is important is you apply these to every little situation, every large situation, but you have to practice them. Just like a test, you need to study. Just like a game, you need to practice. And so with that, the first one, embrace every high and every low in life with a mindset of positivity and growth. Life is about how you choose to respond to the little moments. And my second one, I think this one's really, really important. Understanding that everyone is on their own timeline. Yours is going to be different than hers. Hers is going to be different than hers. Mine is clearly different than yours. Everyone is on their own timeline. Don't compare someone else's version of success to yours. Everyone's version of success is different. You guys are going to understand this as you get older. My version of success is very, very different than a lot of my friends. I'm happy just sitting there with a cup of coffee, man. I really am. Just having great quality relationships is what fulfills me. Instead, I urge you guys to look behind people's milestones, kind of like I've shown you today with my story. And in that, you will see how human we all are. And before we open up to any questions, I just want to say thank you to Jody and Julie for letting me come out here and speak to you guys today. And I appreciate you guys all coming out here and listening to me. And lastly, I want to thank my nephew Gabriel for being my supporter. And with that, we are at the end.